Hey everybody, this is Rachel from The Playful Elephant, and today I'm finally sharing with you my Savana scrapbook album tutorial. So if you have not seen that video and you're not sure what that is, I have a link below so you can watch my walkthrough of that album, kind of get an idea for whether or not that's something you want to create. But this is the tutorial for that album. And how this is going to work, I don't have any more Savana paper. It flew off my shelves and I should have ordered more of it. It's so hard to know what's going to be popular and what's not. So for this particular, when we get to the decorating stage of this tutorial, I'm going to be using Graphic 45 Safari Adventure paper, okay? But again, the link to the Savana album is below. Even though I'm not going to be using that paper to decorate during the tutorial, you can certainly watch that video and decorate the way I did. It's a really simple album. You'd be able to figure that out. I'm going to give you all the measurements in this video when we get to the decorating part. So just use those measurements and cut from the Savana collection if that's what you're using. Okay, and then I guess that's it. So these are the supplies that you'll need to make the album, okay? So we need 2 pieces of 12 by 12 chipboard, medium weight. That's what I use, medium weight. I guess it doesn't have to be medium weight. You need black cardstock between 18 and 20 pieces. I'm using black, that is. You could use craft or whatever you'd like. Between 80 and 90 pounds is perfect when you're building albums. And then I also use a solid cardstock for my photo mats. Okay, you could do white across your whole album, or you could do coordinating colored cardstock that matches your paper, whatever you prefer. And of course you need your paper cutter, scissors, ruler, pencil, glue and miracle tape, so you know, a dry and a wet sticky, scoreboard, scoring tool, and bone folder. So that is everything. So the way that this tutorial works is I usually don't have the opportunity to record like live action. Usually it's in a series of pictures just because I'm home with my kids full time and it's a busy house. They're homeschooled, so. But I actually did most of this album recording live. So hey, I was happy to be able to do that. You will see some pictures telling you what to do, you know, via still images, but okay, enough talking. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's get started wrapping our cover. So what you're going to need is you're going to need your scoreboard, your scoring tool, a bone folder, and get some scrap chipboard because you are going to need to cut a couple of pieces that are 1 inch wide, and then you're going to need to cut a piece that's 1.5 inch wide. And the length doesn't really matter, but you do want it to be pretty generous, so I would say 12 inches is perfect. So 2 pieces that are 1 inch wide and a piece that's 1.5 inch wide. Okay, and then of course you need some type of miracle tape and your glue. And my glue is my primary adhesive anytime I scrapbook because it dries, and since it dries it has a permanent hold. Score tape is always tacky, miracle tape. It never fully dries, and I have come back to books years later and I can actually peel pages apart. Using the same method everybody else uses, you know, following all the great crafters out there, following their methods, my books can come apart after years, and it's because it doesn't dry. What do you expect, you know? So I am a lover of glue. Certainly do what makes you happy. That's very important. But if you can wrap your head around using glue, it's a really, you know, that's wonderful. So I use both when I'm wrapping my cover though, because it's a really important step. So I want both. But I kind of view this as my primary and this as my backup. And when I'm wrapping covers, I use 2 inch. It's a perfect size. So that's what I use. So that is what you need to wrap your cover. So what we're gonna do, and I'm using Tammy Merrill's method. from Country Craft Creations for this album because it's a lightweight album. It's not super heavy, it's not super chunky. If I was doing a really heavy album, I would not use that method. I would use Tyvek to attach my pieces and wrap it all, wrap my entire cover with one large piece of cardstock. But I'm gonna use Tammy's method, which is where we wrap each piece individually. It's a really clean look, and I really like that for a lighter weight album. So, go ahead and grab one of your front/back covers and grab one of your 10 3/4 by 10 3/4 pieces, okay? First thing we're gonna do with our cover, you don't need to apply full coverage. I'm just gonna apply 3 lengths of my score tape, okay? And I am going to leave space around all of the edges. Okay, we'll burnish that really, really well, okay? Okay, so take your scoreboard, get it out. For your cardstock, your 10 3/4 by 10 3/4, if you're using textured cardstock, you want your nice, pretty textured side to be face down because we want that to show on the outside of our cover. So that's gonna be face down here in the scoreboard. I'm gonna take my 2 1-inch wide wrapping guides. They're very well loved, but they work just fine. I'm gonna place those along the top and side of my scoreboard, okay? So we can go ahead and remove the backing from our score tape. Oops. And then I'm going to use my glue, okay? And I'm just going to very generously first I'm going to make sure it comes out. Okay, and then I'm going to very generously run glue along my entire edge, okay? And I'm also going to fill in any spaces. Oh no. Wow, that's never happened before. Okay, I'm also going to fill in with glue quite generously everywhere where there's no score tape, okay? My dog is having a fantastic time playing with herself. I'm sure you can hear. Okay, so now we're gonna turn this over and we are gonna shove it up into the corner of our scoreboard, making sure our cardstock is up against the corner. There we go, like so, okay? I'm gonna get a new rag because that one's got glue all over it. And then I'm going to take my piece on my work surface by itself and I'm gonna burnish really well. Did she make a mess, honey? Oh, goodness. Okay, sorry. My dog was being bad. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to turn this over so the chipboard is face down, and I'm going to start on one edge, and I'm going to find that edge, and I'm just going to very gently use my bone folder to score the cardstock against the edge of the chipboard, okay? And I am being very gentle because I do not want to tear my paper, okay? If it makes you more comfortable, you could turn it over so your chipboard is face up, and you could hold it down, hold your chipboard down securely, the entire length of it, okay, the entire side, and just run your bone folder against the edge of the chipboard through the paper, okay? Sometimes I'll do both, but just being very gentle. You don't have to be as gentle this way because you're using the flat edge of your bone folder against the edge of the chipboard. This is where you have to be really gentle here, okay? So once you have that done, I'm gonna slowly fold this over, okay? Perfect. Burnish that really well, and then do the same thing to the remaining 3 sides, okay? And you'll notice that 2 sides are super easy to fold. This one and this one is going to be really easy to fold because it depends on the grain of your paper, what direction the grain is running. And the other 2 sides that are not running in the same direction as the grain, they're going to be a lot harder to fold. Okay, so burnish that really well. So now what you have is you've got your 4 corners, okay, and you can see the score, or I should say the creases, the fold creases. So we're just gonna take our scissors and we're gonna cut those 4 corners out directly on the fold lines, the creases, okay? All right, and then once that is done, we want to miter the ends of all 4 flaps. Okay, so to do that, we're going to do the right end of every single flap when it's in the topmost position. Okay, so just pick an end. Okay, and on the right side, you're just going to take your scissors and just butt them up against this edge. Okay. And you are just going to miter, okay? Rotate. Now you're gonna do the right side of this end, or I should say this flap. Rotate. Now do the right side of this flap, okay? And just don't start cutting here. Just start cutting right. And you can't really, I've noticed that I can't really cut into this folded side. It doesn't really happen even if I try to. All right, so now turn it over so that you're on the opposite sides of each of your flaps, okay? And do the exact same thing. I hope I'm staying in frame here. Okay, so now we are going to pick 2 sides, doesn't matter which, okay? So I'm gonna start with these 2 here, okay? So first I want to make sure that my corners look nice and clean, so I'm gonna fold this down, and then the top, and I'm gonna look at that, and there is no paper sticking out there. I have a beautiful edge. Same thing here, okay? Wow, I mean, absolutely beautiful, okay? And then same thing with this other opposite end. I'm gonna fold that down, and then I'm gonna make sure when the top and bottom are folded that my edges are nice and clean. And they are. Wonderful. Sometimes you might have a little, just tiny sliver of cardstock sticking out. You can just trim that off. Okay, so that's what it's gonna look like. So these two sides first, I'm gonna take my score tape, wherever it may be. I'm gonna use 3/8 of an inch. You could use anything that fits inside there. I just want to make sure that I leave some space on the outside edge and on the inside edge for my glue, okay? Okay, I'm gonna burnish my tape really well. And then I can, on one side, we're just gonna start on one side, I'm gonna remove the backing from my miracle tape. Oops. And then I'm gonna take my glue and I'm gonna run it up against the edge of my chipboard piece, okay? Oh, I forgot to put the stopper in this thing. I am constantly fighting with my glue. Okay. Right inside the edge, right into the edge of that chipboard, and then around the edge of the flap, okay? Don't cover up your tape. And then fold that in. And because I use glue all the time, I don't think I could do that if I didn't have a rag handy. This rag is like my best friend, okay? So I will burnish with my bone folder, and see how it spreads that glue out? That's exactly what we want. It's gonna give you a wonderful hold. That glue is spread everywhere. It's gonna dry, so it's gonna be a permanent hold. And just be careful if you are using a rag, when you burnish with it, burnish in the direction of the fold, not like that. So you don't wanna snag your folded paper and get it to come up. So like that, okay? All right, now for this side, same thing. Let's remove the backing from our miracle tape. Run glue into the edge of your chipboard, all along the outer edges of the flap, okay? Don't cover your tape, and fold. Okay, so now you can do the exact same thing to your remaining two, and of course this is a perfect square, so doesn't matter which sides, even if it wasn't a perfect square, it wouldn't matter which sides you did first. That has no bearing whatsoever on the orientation of the chipboard. Okay, let's do these two sides, same exact way, okay? Oh, and I would shout this from the rooftops if I thought people would listen. But if you've never heard of Viva Las Vegas Stamps, it's a store in Las Vegas, and they have a website. I would encourage you to go there and check out their miracle tape. I can promise you, at least I think I can promise you, I'm a wholesaler. I have a retail store. And I have shopped around everywhere. I've shopped around with Score Pal. I've shopped around at the dollar store, Joann Fabric, everywhere. And I've never found a score tape better quality or cheaper than from Viva Las Vegas Stamps. So, and their rolls come double the size of everyone else. So if you get score tape, you're getting a 27-yard roll. If you buy Miracle tape from Viva Las Vegas Stamps, you're getting 55 yards and it's cheaper than the 27 yards. Yes, you heard me correctly. Their 55 roll is less expensive than everybody else's 27 yard roll. By like, I think it comes out like, if you buy Score Pal or even Joann Fabric, I think you're paying like 19 cents a yard. Whereas this stuff is like, I think it works out to 10 or 9 cents a yard. It's incredible. But yeah, go to their website. It's Viva Las Vegas and then Stamps, but there's only one S. So it ends up being Viva Las Vegas Stamps. And click on Miracle Tape and just kind of check it out and see what you think. But man, I love their tape. I've been working with it for more than 10 years. It's the only double-sided tape I use. Even cheaper than the dollar store. It ends up being a little bit, you know, not much cheaper than the dollar store, but it is. Okay. So now I'm going to just flatten out my edges gently using the edge of my bone folder, okay? And then once you have done that, go ahead and rewind the video if you need to, but you're gonna follow all of those same steps for your other cover piece, your other 8 3/4 by 8 3/4 with the 10 3/4 by 10 3/4 wrap. So do that and then come back here. Do not work ahead with this one yet because it's different than the front and back cover, okay? So just rewind the video, work on the other cover piece, and then we will do this one together. Okay, so now we have our two cover pieces wrapped, okay? So we will set those aside and grab your scoreboard. And this time you want to grab only one of your 1-inch wrapping guides and a 1.5-inch wrapping guide, okay? So, and then we have our spine piece, which is 8 3/4 by 3, and we have our spine wrap, which is 6 inches wide by 8 3/4. So let's prepare this. And I do like to apply full coverage to my spine. I don't know why, maybe I like to apply full coverage. So I'm gonna take my 2-inch score tape, okay? I'm gonna do that. I'm going to use the same tape. I don't have 1-inch tape, which is fine. You could use, you know, whatever length of tape you need to kind of get your coverage. But I'm just going to use my 2-inch again. Oopsies. Okay. There we go. You could save this if you wanted to. And I'm going to burnish that really well. Okay. So I don't put glue on this one. This is the only step that I don't really use glue. Okay. So for my spine wrap, my nice textured side is going to be face down, okay? Stick it up into the corner of your scoreboard. We want our 1.5-inch wrap to be on the left and our 1-inch wrap to be at the top, okay? So then we can remove the backing from our spine. All right, and just push it up. I I don't know why I did that, it doesn't matter. Push it up into your chipboard guides, okay? And burnish that really well. I like to use my rag even when there's no glue, just because I feel like it's almost like a roller. You get more, I don't know, you can cover more real estate, more ground with it. Okay, so we are gonna continue as we did before to start, okay? We're gonna fold each of our 4 sides, okay? So I'm very gently scoring the paper. All right. You can use your fingers to, you know, crease these edges that are hanging over if you want. Makes it a little bit easier. They're gonna get cut away, so they're not super important. Okay. Those 2 sides, or these 2 sides, much easier to fold. I guess they are running along with the direction of the grain in the paper. All right, so same thing, we've got our 4 squares in the corners. You can see where we crease the paper there, so just cut those out along the creases, right up to the corner of your chipboard, okay? And when your scissors meet perfectly, you're less likely to have any cardstock sticking out when you're checking your wrapped corners. See, when I have to do that, I'm more likely to have a piece of cardstock that I have to snip off later. Okay. All right, so as we did before, again, let's start with any of our edges, and we're just gonna miter the right side of each of our edges, okay? And then we'll flip it over and do the right side of each of the edges, okay? And just be really careful that you're not cutting into this edge when you miter this edge, okay? If you just kind of butt your scissors up against and start start the cutting just right at the bottom of this edge. I hope I'm not getting too close to the camera. Like I said, I've never been able to cut into this. I mean, I would have to be trying really hard to do that, I guess. Just like that, okay? Okay. All right, and then we'll turn it over and do the opposite sides. Okay, so now we are not going to wrap these longer edges. We are only going to wrap the top and the bottom shorter edges, okay? So fold them down and just kind of take a look and make sure that it's pretty clean there. I have a little piece of cardstock sticking out. So I'm gonna fold this back over and snip that off if I can. There we go, okay. So that looks good. That edge looks good. That edge looks good, okay. So we can go ahead and adhere those two ends down as we did before. I'm just gonna apply one strip of score tape as my backup, okay? Just a little extra hold. And then I will be very generous with my glue. I'm gonna run it inside the edge of the chipboard. Inside the edge of the chipboard and along the outside edge. Okay. Fold that over. Okay, same thing on this side. Okay. All right, let's flatten our cardstock against the edge of the chipboard. Okay, got a little bit more glue to come out. That's great. It's going to be a really good hold. Beautiful. Okay. So the next thing that we are going to do is, all right, we need to grab our two cover pieces, okay, and how this is going to work. These two wings here are going to attach to our front and back covers, okay? And they're going to attach like this. So if your chipboard is face down on your workstation, everything's going to attach just like that, okay? So that when it's all attached, you turn it over, and this is the inside of your album where you're going to attach your pages and whatnot, and that's what it's going to look like, okay? So to do that, we'll go ahead and set one of our covers aside. So I'm right-handed, I'm gonna start over here. And then when I get to that other piece, I'll turn it around and I'll attach it on the right. So to start, you are gonna run glue. I don't use score tape here. You are gonna run glue all along this, but you want to stay away from the edge of the chipboard, okay? Because we don't want glue getting stuck on that edge, because what'll happen is it can tear your page. I'll show you. So be very generous with your glue. I just cleaned off my tip, so it comes out nice and like a thin bead, hopefully. Okay, so you are going to be very generous with your glue. All right. All along the edge, just stay away. That's probably too far away. You can get a little bit closer than that, I think. Okay. All right. Okay, so then you are going to take one end of your cover piece. It doesn't matter which at this step, because our cover piece is a perfect square. If it was a rectangle, you would need to make sure you had the right side lined up with your spine, but it doesn't matter. So take the side where the chipboard is exposed, okay, because you want the face down side. Don't do this side, I messed up. And you are going to run one bead of glue about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, so still not right up against the edge, okay? And then you are going to take that edge with the chipboard exposed where you ran that glue, turn it over, okay? And you want to line up this piece with the edge of this piece. Do not stick it down and then push over. Cricket, stop. Because you don't want to push glue into the edge. So don't do this and then slide it, because like I said, you don't want to shove this glue against the edge of your chipboard. So line it up and then attach it down, okay? So make sure it is right up into the edge of your spine piece. These two edges should line up. These two edges should line up. So do a real quick burnish, okay? Just a real quick burnish, and then before you finish burnishing, open it up. Yes, you can see I have no glue here. I didn't get glue too close into my, against the edge. If I had gotten glue in there, what would happen is when you go to open it, the glue would tear your paper, because it was trying to keep that hinge shut, because that's what glue does. And then when you open it, it would tear your paper. So now that you see that you didn't do that, which is wonderful, you may go ahead and give it a good burnish all around. What are you doing, puppy? So yeah, I accidentally started to attach this side, so it would have looked like this. That would have been bad. Don't do that. So that's why I have glue here that I had to wipe away. That's okay. That's going to get covered by design paper. Okay, you won't see any of that, and plus this will dry. Glitter glue dries clear, so okay, so see what I mean when I say that if you're looking at your album right now, you can see how beautifully clean those edges are. And this is a really great method for a lighter weight album. Like I said, I wouldn't do this for a really heavy, chunky album. I would not feel comfortable. But for a lighter weight album, it's perfect. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing over here, okay? And remember, we're going to adhere it with the chipboard down, okay? So let's start here first. Let's run a bead of glue along the entire edge, staying away from the edge of the chipboard, okay? Okay, and then on this side, again, not the beautiful wrapped side, turn it over to where the chipboard is exposed. And on any edge, again, it doesn't matter because our covers are a perfect square. Just run one thin bead of glue about 1/8 of an inch away, okay? All right, so then you'll turn that over. And again, don't push down and then slide, because you don't want to slide your glue into the edge of your chipboard. Line it up and then stick it down, okay? Make sure it's butted right up against the edge of your spine. This should line up. This should line up. Do a real quick burnish, making sure it's staying up against the edge. So I have to push it in as I burnish. Just enough that it doesn't, just enough that it sticks. And then, oh, look at that, beautiful. There's no glue coming out. So I'm safe to give it a really good burnish. Elbow grease. Wonderful, okay. Run your bone folder really well against the edges to push that glue all the way to the edge to give it a nice permanent hold, okay? Wonderful. this is our cover so far. It's wonderful. All right. Okay, so now what we need next is a piece of cardstock to cover our spine, and that is going to measure 8 3/4 by 8. So we're going to start with 8 3/4 by 8. So if you're working a little bit ahead of me, don't adhere it just yet. So let me get out my cutter here. Okay, I'm going to start with the shorter end, the shorter cut, which is 8 inches, so I can preserve as much of this leftover paper as I can. And then 8 3/4, okay? All right, so I've got 8 by 8 3/4. And I am just gonna take the 8 3/4 side and line it up. Okay, so it's 8 3/4 this way, and so is our book. And I'm gonna move it so I don't get my frizzy hair in the camera. What I'm doing is I'm just making sure I'm making sure that this does not stick out past the edge of my book. If it was, maybe I would just cut off a 1/16 of an inch from the height, okay? So let me just check that. Actually, I'm just gonna cut the tiniest sliver off of the 8 3/4 side, which would technically make it 8 11/16. Maybe not even that much. I'll take the smallest cut that my cutter can handle. That's pretty tiny. It's so small I can't even grab it. There we go. Pretty tiny. Okay. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm again gonna take my 2-inch score tape, and anytime I'm cutting spine hiders, I always cut it in increments of 2, so it will accommodate my 2-inch tape. So basically I can run, what did I cut that as? 8, so I can run 4 lengths of my 2-inch tape here, okay? And again, I do want my nice textured side to be face down, because we want that to be face up. Even though, you know what, you're not even gonna see most of it, so it doesn't really matter. It's gonna get covered with our pages and with decorative paper. Okay. Oopsies. So I'm actually gonna bring my large cutting mat in. I almost always have this on my work surface. I just don't think it's very pretty when I'm recording, but I'm gonna bring that in to help me, okay? And I didn't cut the edge of my tape straight, so I'm gonna make sure it fully covers left to right. So I actually do find this to be a lot easier than using a giant sheet, but you do what works well for you, okay? All right. So you may have to cut some overhang off, okay? That's to be expected. All right, so this is our spine hider now. Let's burnish that really, really well. all we're gonna do is just remove your score tape and as best you can, just line it up perfectly. So there, I mean, it's because it is, excuse me, cut to the exact same height of our book. It's not too hard to accomplish without any tools to assist us. What? You can talk, honey. I'm actually using it as we speak, honey. Okay. Okay, so I am gonna make sure that I don't have any tape overhanging, which I do a little bit. So I'll just kind of tuck it underneath the paper. Okay, like so. All right. Okay. So all you're gonna do in this step, hopefully I don't get my head in the camera. Okay, is just line it up as evenly as you can. So I'm just eyeballing it, okay, I just generally want the same amount of cardstock hanging over this side of my spine as I have over this side of my spine, okay? So I'm just eyeballing it, okay? And then once I have it pretty well centered, I'm just gonna make sure that the bottom edge is lined up with that bottom edge, and boom, I'm sticking it down. Okay. Perfect. And from there, we just want to burnish really well. And I know there's no glue here involved, but again, I'm going to use this because I feel like it's a really good way to burnish. It just gives me more surface area to cover. Okay, I'll even use my elbow because that gives you a lot more strength. And this is not hurting my paper, okay? It's not, my rag is not abrasive enough to really cause any harm to my paper. And I'll take my bone folder and just make sure the edges are burnished really well, you know, okay? And then once we have that step done, again, this is where you want to be really, really gentle, okay? So go ahead and gently, not all the way, but just kind of bring up one of your covers so that it folds there where the crease is. And then just take your bone folder and very gently help it to fold, okay? This step is really important. You do not want to tear through your paper here. I wouldn't honestly know how to fix that if I did. If you have any ideas, please feel free to comment. Now if you tore, before you put your gusset hider down, if you maybe, you know, tore something under there, this would hide it. But if this tore, I'm not really sure how I would handle that. So just take it slow and be real gentle. It's a very fine line between too much pressure and not enough pressure. But when you do this over and over again, you can kind of start to do it in your sleep. It's been a long time since I've torn paper this way, but I used to do it. Yes, I did. And I'm still scared every time that I'm gonna tear it. All right. There we have it. So ta-da, we've got a beautiful cover following Tammy Merrill's method. Perfect, okay. And I guess I have a little tiny bit of score tape sticking out. But if you take a pencil eraser, that will get rid of that tape really well. It'll tear that tape off. Just certainly does work on when it's exposed. Maybe it won't work as well when half of it's in between two pieces of paper, but okay. So there we go. So we are gonna go ahead and start attaching our pages, and I will continue to do this live as long as I am able to. I'm gonna go ahead and, you know what I think we'll do? I think we'll go ahead and get all of our pieces covered. I'm sorry, we'll get all of our pieces cut. We'll put them in piles, and then we will come back and build the album together. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and build the album together as long as... I started to say as long as I have some quiet, and then she starts barking. Okay, so for our 5 base pages, Cricket, come here, sweetie. I think she sees a squirrel. We need our scoring board and our scoring tool, okay? And our 5 base pages. So what we want to do is we want to lay our pages textured side face up, okay? And you want your longer edge, to be along the top of your scoreboard. So 8 3/4 of an inch is along the top of your scoreboard, okay? And then you are going to score at 1/2 of an inch, okay? At the 3/4 mark. And I believe that's it. Yes. Yep. Okay. So for all 5 of your pages, textured side face up. If you have a textured side, you may be using solid. And you want your 8 3/4 of an inch edge to be along the top of your scoreboard. You're scoring at 1/2 inch, and you're scoring at the 3/4 mark. So at the 1/2 inch mark and the 3/4 inch mark. And don't fold on the second score mark yet. If you want to go ahead and start folding, fold on the first 1/2 inch score mark. So to do that, we turn our paper over, textured side down, so that we can see the bumpy side of our fold, and just fold into the bumpy side of our score mark, and just fold into it. So that 1/2 inch one only, okay? We're not gonna fold the other one until a long time from now. So there you have it, okay? So you've got a 1/2 inch flap, and then you have a 1/4 inch section that we're not gonna fold. So do that to all 5 of your pages. Okay, so there are your 5 pages, okay? Now, so how I like to do my pages most of the time, I don't have any kind of a complicated binding system. I don't have any kind of a funky hinge. I'm pretty easy with my pages, and I've never had an issue with them coming apart because I use glue. So this is basically my hinge for my page, this little 1/2 inch flap, and it is going to get glued down directly against my spine, and it's going to get full coverage glue, and it's going to be mitered really well. It is not going anywhere. That is my favorite way of doing album pages, okay? And especially when it's a more lightweight album like this. But I even do that for my heavy albums. Okay, so all of our pages are folded. Now what we want to do is, so we have 5 pages and our flaps are 1/2 inch, which of course means that's going to take up 2.5 inches, okay? And basically what we have is we're going to have a 1/2 inch space in between each actual page, okay? So if this page is standing straight up and down, okay, we have a 1/2 inch on this side of the page and we have a 1/2 inch on that side of the page. So when we adhere down our very first page, we want to make sure that our 1/2 inch flap is facing that way, okay? Because if we do it like this and our 1/2 inch flap is that way, we have no space between the page and the spine, okay? Because this is our spine here. I hope you can see it. So our spine crease is right there, okay? It's right there. So if we attach our page with the flap facing in that direction and we butt it up against our spine, we have no space in between. So what we want to do is we want to adhere it so our 1/2 inch flap is butted up against the page spine, and we're just pretending that this edge is our spine edge, okay? There. Then we have a 1/2 inch of a space between our spine and our actual page, okay? So that's what we'll do, and we're going to use our spine's edge to line it up, okay? And we'll eyeball to make sure we have about the same amount of space sticking out from the top of our page as we do from the bottom of our page, okay? So when you're ready, you're just going to take glue and you're going to generously run it along the outside of this 1/2 inch flap, okay? And I'm just going to dry fit it now to show you what I'm going to do because I'm going to need to get my head in the way. So let's just pretend we have glue here, okay? I'm going to line it up against the edge of my spine. Don't cover up the crease, but you will stick it down right up against. You're just going to eyeball it. Make sure that you have the same space here, the same space here. You could even measure if you wanted. You know, you could take your ruler and you could say, all right, I have about 5/16 there, and I have about 5/16 there, so perfect. And then you'll just burnish it really well, and you could even, once it's stuck down, close it and make sure it's same as there and there, which it should be, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and apply my glue very generously, okay? I'm terrible with putting my stopper back in the glue. What, sweetheart? You wanna play with mommy? Okay, so I'm gonna do just what I showed you a second ago, but I have to get out of frame here for a minute, I'm sorry, so that I can see really well. Okay, so I have it stuck down. It's lined up. I'm not burnishing really hard yet. It's lined up with my edge. I've got the same amount of space here, same amount of space here. Now I'm gonna shut it. I have the exact same amount of space here as here. Sometimes if it's not lined up, it might look straight in this direction, but then when you shut it and it's over here, it doesn't look right. So now I can burnish it down really well, and I'm gonna do that in the position where it's not flat. So I'm gonna actually fold it, because if glue seeps out, I don't want it to seep out and stick down this 1/2 inch hinge to the spine. So I'm gonna burnish it from this direction first, okay? And I'm safe. There's no glue coming out that's gonna stick down my page, the rest of my page, okay? It will be super easy to to adhere the remaining 4 pages, okay? Because all you have to do is line up all of the other ones to the edge of this page, okay? Okay. So then we'll take our next page and we will put glue. So remember, it's gonna go with a 1/2 inch flap that way, okay? So we'll put glue on the outside. So not on the inside, but on the outside of the flap. And then once our glue is on the outside of the flap, we will butt it right up against the flap of that page. And as you can see, I'm dry fitting it right now, but that's how it will be lined up. You can see perfect. All right, perfect. I don't like to flatten out the glue too much, but if I have a huge clump, I might spread it a little bit. All right, so I'm just lining it directly up against the first one. And before I burnish it really well, I definitely want to close it and make sure those two, oh, wow, they line up so perfectly. It's not even funny. And then both pages this direction. Wow. I mean, I honestly don't usually do this well. I'm quite impressed. Okay, so I'm gonna burnish it now really, really well. But again, I'm gonna keep the page folded to the left so that if any glue seeps out here, it's not sticking down my page to the spine, okay? All right, so now I am safe to open it back up and burnish this way, okay? So go ahead and just do that with the remaining 3 pages so that by the time you're done, you'll have that one there. Okay, you'll have this one about there. Oops. And you'll have this one about there. And then when you're done, you'll have exactly 1/2 inch of spine left over on the right side of this page. So every single page as it stands straight up will have a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here, okay? So go ahead and adhere down your 3 remaining pages in the exact same manner, and then we'll come back together. All right, so here's our album so far, okay, with our 5 pages securely attached. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna get the front and back inside covers ready, okay? So let's set this aside. Let's grab our scoreboard and our scoring tool. Okay, and you have 2 large pockets for the inside covers, all right? And you have 2 smaller pockets for the inside covers, okay? So we'll start with the large ones, okay? And what we want to do here is we want to lay our large pockets so that the 9 1/8 inch side, 9 5/8, sorry, so that our 9 5/8 end is against the top of our scoreboard, and I have my textured side face up, okay? All right, and we are gonna score 1/2 inch from this edge, okay? And then we are gonna rotate it, and we're gonna score 1/2 inch from this edge, okay? And then we wanna go ahead and put the shorter end at the top of our scoreboard, so the 4 inch end at the top of our scoreboard, and we wanna score 1/2 inch, okay? And the reason I hold my paper like this is because I've noticed that when I do this and I start to score, the act of pulling down kind of pulls this away. It might do that. And I don't like that. So this is how I score. All right, so do that with both of your pockets, okay? So now with you've got a little corner here and a corner here. It created the score marks created a square. So you just want to miter that, so you want to cut that square off, but add a miter. So as opposed to doing a perfect square like this, so instead of doing that, you want to miter like this. Okay? That's how you want to cut your square off. And you're not going to miter the top ends of this 1/2 inch flap or this 1/2 inch flap. Okay, you're going to leave those intact. Okay. And then with our textured side face down so that we can see the bumpy side of our score lines, go ahead and fold on all 3. 1, 2, and 3 edges. Burnish those real well, okay? And when you fold, if those 2 flaps still kind of overlap or get in the way of each other, just miter one of them in a little bit further. Just don't cut into your corner here. Start at your corner and miter in a little bit further. Okay? Perfect. Okay. And then for our 2 small pockets, we are simply going to line it up so the longer end, the 8-inch end, is at the top of our scoreboard. Again, I have my nice textured side face up, okay? And we are just going to score 1/2 inch from both ends. So right here, rotate and 1/2, okay? And again, turn it so that you can see the bumpy side of your score mark. Fold and burnish. Okay, now we can go ahead and get our inside covers assembled. Really easy, it's just 2 pockets, that's all that it is. So this is our inside cover from here over, okay? It's kind of hard to see when you're using black, but my spine begins here, okay? This is the inside cover, okay? So I'll just keep this here so you can see where my spine begins. Okay. Now, if you would prefer to cover this entire thing with one solid piece of black cardstock just to hide all of your seams, please feel free. I don't do that because I think it's wasting paper, but it's not wasting paper for you if it's not wasting paper for you. So what I'm going to do is once I adhere this pocket down, I will mat this with my decorative paper, but I will cut it long enough so that it sits on top of this crease right here. So we won't have any problem getting stuff down inside there, okay? And if you're worried that it might catch on this one, you could cut this 1/2 inch flap off and you could simply glue your bottom down, okay? So, you know, if you're not new to mini albums, you know, you could do your pocket however you wanted to. I like to have this flap here. I just feel like it gives the pocket more room, I guess, to put things in. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and actually when I'm ready to cut my decorative paper, I want to make sure that it's at least 8 inches, because if it's 8 inches long, it's gonna go just past this seam, so tags won't get caught on it. So I'll just remember that number. I'll just remember that I want my decorative paper to be at least 8 inches tall. Could be 8, could even go to 8 1/2, 8 1/4, 8 1/2. Okay, so I'm gonna take one of my large pockets, okay? And what I wanna do is I want to adhere glue to the outside of the flap that's gonna get lined up to the left side of my book. Okay, first, I'm not gonna apply glue to all 3 flaps. If my pocket were stuck down, this is my left flap, I'm going to apply glue to that one first, to the outside of that one first. Okay, just like this. Of course, I didn't put the stopper back on. Okay. Ooh. Now it's really coming out. Okay. And then I'm going to line up the entire pocket. And what I want to do is I want to line it up against this left edge and the bottom edge. So this edge and this edge. Okay. I do want to line up the whole pocket, but it's not all being adhered down yet. Okay. So I've got the pocket, so this edge is lined up flush with this one, and my bottom edge is lined up flush with this one. So it leaves a little bit of space. So if this is my spine, which it is, I've got about a 1/16 of an inch space between this side of the pocket and my spine, which is great. So it won't interfere with the folding of the book. And I can burnish this down well enough that it stays. And now I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to do the real good burnishing, okay? All right, perfect. So now I am good to go ahead and put glue. Now that I know my pocket is exactly lined up, I should say perfectly lined up, I can go ahead and put glue on my other two flaps and I can adhere them down, okay? At the same time. It's already lined up exactly where I want it. And like I said, you could cut this bottom before you started adhering your pocket. You could have cut this bottom flap off if you prefer not to have a bottom flap. It is possible that whatever you put in this pocket could get stuck on it, but you know, it's such a large, the pocket is on a very large page. It's not going to be an issue for this book. And it, as long as you follow it all the way down, it should already be perfectly lined up, okay? I just want to make sure that catch any glue that seeps out before I burnish too much. There we go. So that's our large pocket, okay? So we're gonna do the exact same thing to the back inside cover. Okay, and so for your back inside cover, if you have your pocket so that this flap is on the bottom, here are your two side flaps, okay? You're gonna adhere it so that it is flush against the right edge and the bottom edge, okay? So these two edges are flush and these two edges are flush. So then you'll have about 1/16 of an inch between this edge of the pocket and your spine. So we want to put glue on the outside of this flap first, okay? Okay, just make sure you get those ends burnished real well. All right, so then we still have our two small pockets, okay, that we cannot stick on just yet because we need to mat the large pockets first, okay? But when we get to the matting, we'll cut a piece of decorative paper 1/8 of an inch smaller than our pocket, we'll mat it, and then we'll stick this pocket down. Super easy, we'll just apply glue here, and a thin line of glue along the bottom to keep it shut, and we'll just center it on, or I'll probably put mine more toward the bottom, but that's what we're gonna do at that point. So for now, we can go ahead and safely tuck those pockets into the larger ones, just for safekeeping, okay? And let's go ahead and move on to our 5 large page flaps, which are right here. Okay, so we have 5 of these. And let's get our scoreboards out. And our scoring tool, okay? And what we want to do with these 5 large page flaps is we want to score them so that the longer edge, which measures 8 3/4, okay, we want that to go along the top of our scoreboard, and we want to score at 1/2 of an inch. Okay, 1/2 of an inch and 5/8 of an inch. Sometimes it's easier if I do it like this. Okay. So the 8 3/4 edge is at the top. We're scoring at 1/2 and 5/8 with all 5 of our large page flaps. All right, and then for those 5 pages, so we scored those with the textured side face up. I didn't mention that. And so now we're going to turn them over, textured side face down, so you are looking at the bumpy side of the score mark, and you only want to fold the first 1/2 inch flap, okay? So for now, leave that 5/8 of an inch untouched, okay? Do that to all 5 of those large flaps. Okay, and then for each of these 1/2 inch flaps, I want to miter, okay? So I'm gonna start at that 1/2 inch score mark, okay? So we have a 1/2 inch score mark here, and then farther in we have our 5/8 of an inch score line. I'm not gonna start at the 5/8. I'm gonna start right at the 1/2, and I'm not gonna cut into the 1/2 inch score mark. I'm just gonna start right above it and miter my corner, okay? I'm gonna do that for all 5. Okay. All right, so we can go ahead and attach these to our pages, okay? So let's bring our books out. I'm going to grab a scrap piece of cardstock, something that I don't really use. I don't really care if it gets messed up, not that it would, but, and I'm gonna use that to separate the page I'm working on from the rest of the book, okay? Just like that. And I'm gonna butt it right up against, you know, the page, because I want to be able to see that. I want to be able to see my edges nice and clearly, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our first large page flap, and that 1/2 inch flap that we folded is at the top of our page, okay? So you can see it's at the top of our page. All right, and basically it's going to get glued down. I'm sorry, it's situated at the top. So here's your flap. Here's your large page flap, and the 1/2 inch is there, and it's being folded down, okay, against your work surface. So that is how we're gonna glue that flap to our first page, okay? And you're gonna line up that 1/2 inch flap with the top and right edges, okay? So flush with the right edge, flush with the top edge, and we still have that little 5/8 of an inch space that we didn't fold. That's still laying there perfectly flat. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply glue. Oops. All right, I'm just gonna move this down so I can line mine up. I can look directly down on top of it. Okay, I'm gonna burnish it gently from this end, or this side, just to get it to stay in place, and then I will give it a good burnish. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna let that dry, okay? It's gonna sit for a few minutes. By the time I have all the other pages glued, by the time I have all of the other large flaps attached to their pages, this one will have been sitting long enough that I can come back and I can fold on this 5/8 of an inch score line, and I'll show you how I do that once it's already attached. It's not hard. So we'll go ahead and go to page 2, okay? Okay, so we have our large page flaps attached to our pages, okay? All right, so then if you want to let your pages You know, if you want to let them dry a little bit more, you certainly can. But how I fold on my 5/8 of an inch flap is I open up my 5/8 of an inch score line. I open up my flap, okay, and then I simply line my ruler up directly against that 5/8 of an inch score line, and boom, you have a beautiful, beautiful fold, okay? But yeah, you do want to make sure that your 1/2 inch flap has completely dried and is well secured to your page, okay? And the reason I do that is because I find when I have folded both my 1/2 inch flap and my 1/8 inch flap, I feel like I can't attach it to my page very well because the 5/8 of an inch flap gets in the way. But that's just me. Oops. Okay. So there you have it. So you can do that with all 5 pages, okay? So I don't know how well you can see that on my camera, but there you go. You have so you have a little 5/8 of an inch space there to give you lots of room within when you're working within this, okay? So you can do that to your remaining pages. Yep, perfect. Okay, so right now there's a lot of bulk at the top of your pages and not so much bulk at the bottom, but we're gonna put pockets here, so that's gonna help, okay? Even out that bulk. It's gonna lift up the bottom parts of the pages a little bit more, make the bulk more even, okay? So that leads us to the next step, which is this step. We have 5 page pockets that measure 9 1/16 of an inch by 3.5, okay? So let's get out our scoreboards. And we are going to put those in, and with the long end across the top, we're gonna score at 1/2 of an inch. We're gonna rotate and score at 1/2 of an inch. And then with our shorter edge across the top, we're gonna score at 1/2 of an inch, okay? So you're gonna do that with all 5 of your pockets. So 1/2 an inch, rotate 1/2 an inch, and then the shorter edge across the top, 1/2 of an inch, okay? Okay. So now we are gonna cut off those 2 little squares that you see. They were created from the score lines. You're gonna cut those off at an angle as we did with our other pockets, okay? And that's all we're gonna miter. For these pockets, we're not gonna miter the top, okay? And then we are gonna fold and burnish on all of our score lines, okay? So turn it over so that your bumpy side, your score tool created a bumpy side, you're gonna fold into that, okay? And then what we're gonna do with our pockets, if I remember correctly, let me double check. Yes, so we're gonna adhere our pockets. We are gonna adhere our pockets to each page. We're gonna open up our large flap, get it out of the way, and then our pockets are gonna get adhered to the base of each page. And again, it's gonna be flush with the right edge and the bottom edge so that we have about 1/16 of an inch over here, okay? So I am going to go ahead and put glue on the outside of the flap that's flush with the right. Okay, and I'm going to adhere that down and line up the entire pocket. Oh, I might be out of frame, maybe not, okay. Just get the whole pocket lined up so that when this gets adhered really well, you know you are good. Okay. And then you can go ahead and apply glue to the outside of the remaining 2 flaps, okay? Just let that go down. It's already been lined up, but just make sure it follows. When you follow it down, make sure it stays lined up, okay? And I'm trying not to put so much glue on. I think I might have used too much glue up there. I don't normally do that. But shouldn't have too much seeping out when you're working on the pages. Perfect. All right. And you can do that to all of your remaining pages. Okay, so just remember, you're going to open up the large, well, let's go ahead and put this under page 2. You're going to open up your large flap, get it out of the way. Excuse me. And your pocket is going to get flush, go flush with the right edge and the bottom edge. Okay, so that you will have about a 1/16 of an inch between this edge and that 1/4 inch score line, because remember, all of our base pages, they had the 1/2 inch flap that got adhered to our spine, but then they also have a second score mark, which we haven't folded yet. So everything you are working on within a page, it's not hiding that additional score mark. It's not covering that up at all. So just be cognizant of that, okay? Okay. So, with the exception of a few remaining pieces, our album is done. Let's go ahead and take care of those remaining pieces. So we still can't touch these. We won't be able to touch those until we start matting. But what we have next and last is a pile of 10 photo flaps that measure 6 1/4 by 4 7/8. Okay. So what we are going to do with those is we're going to get out our scoreboard and our scoring tool. Okay. And we are going to score those with the short end at the top. Okay. So our 4 7/8 inch edge is going to go along the top of our scoreboard. And we are simply going to score at 1/2 of an inch, okay? Okay, so I've scored at 1/2 of an inch. And you're gonna do that with all 10 of your flaps. And I should mention, in my, what's the name of the paper? In the album that I did, the one that you all wanted me to do the tutorial from, the Stamperia Savana, there you go. I only had photo flaps on the back sides of the first 4 pages. Okay, 3, 4, but not on the 5th. I am gonna do it on the back side of the 5th page in this album. Okay, so that's why I have 10 flaps instead of 8. Set our scoring board aside, and all we want to do for these 10 photo flaps is we want to score on the score mark, burnish, and do not miter. It wouldn't hurt you if you do, but there's absolutely no need to miter these, so why make the extra effort, right? Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this on one of the 5 pages, and then you can just rewind the video if you need to and do it for the remaining 4. Okay, So I am on page number 1. I'm going to turn to the very, very back side of it, okay? And the very first step is I'm going to take my ruler and a pencil. The pencil that my dog got a hold of, as you can see, it's all chewed up. And I am going to simply make a small pencil mark in the very center of my page. So my page is 8 1/8. Oh yeah, I can't use that pencil. So I'm going to make a mark about the 4. It would be 4 1/16 if you want to be exactly even. Okay? And I'm going to take, actually, no, I'm not, okay. And I'm going to take one of my photo flaps, okay? So I have one photo flap. Here's the 1/2 inch edge. I'm going to fold it under, flat against my work surface. And I am also going to make a mark at exactly the halfway point there. So that measures 6 1/4, which means halfway is 3 1/8. Just a small pencil mark, okay? And what that does, is it is going to help me put this flap onto this page, perfectly centered between the top and the bottom, okay? So again, we're on the back side of page 1. I've got a contrasting scrap paper here so I can see my edge cleanly. I'm going to put glue on the outside of the flap of this first photo mat. Oops. And then I can just line up those 2 pencil marks. And actually, you know what? Get your large page flap out of the way. Open it up and get it out of the way. That'll make it even easier. And I'm simply going to line up those 2 pencil marks. And the edge of the photo flap should be flush with the edge of the page. Just like so. Okay? And the reason we didn't need to miter this one is because the edges of our photo flap, they're not going to touch the flap of the page, so we're not going to have too much bulk. They're not going to interfere with when we mat, so we don't have to miter them. And now all you need to do is when you adhere this one on this side, you can just close this one and you can line them up together. So let me get a smaller scrap piece of paper here. So if I shut this flap, okay, when I glue this one down, you'll just line up this flap with this flap, okay? You can just use the edges of both flaps to make sure they're lined up. So you don't need to do any measuring to center this one. The only thing you do want to do is make sure you do not cover that one. You okay, bud? Make sure you don't cover that 1/4 inch gusset that you have on all of your pages. Like I said, that's still laying flat. We haven't folded it, but just don't cover it up. And in fact, when you glue this flap to the right side of that page, don't go over that score mark. Don't even go on top of it. Stay just to the left of it, okay? So I just have this here so you can see the edges of my photo mats more clearly. All right, we're gonna put glue on the outside of this flap, or score tape, whatever you're using. Okay. Don't adhere it down to your scrap paper. Make sure that's out of the way. And then I'm gonna kind of line it up with my other flap as I go. You just have to line up both at the same time. So get it lined up with the end of your page at the same time, making sure it's in line with the first flap you adhered. Just, you know, eyeball it. There you go. So I am not covering, I did not go on top of that inner score mark on that page. I stayed just to the left of it. I did not cover it at all. You can still see the entire score line, okay? You can even go, I would actually recommend go like a 1/16 of an inch away from that score line, okay? And there you go. So you have two photo flaps perfectly centered and perfectly lined up with one another, okay? So let's go ahead and turn that page so you're on the very first one and fold that large flap back down, okay? So we don't damage that. And then we can turn page 1/page 2 out of the way. Okay, here's our next page. This is technically 3. We'll turn over to 4. Actually, on page 3, get your large flap out of the way. Okay, then you can turn over to page 4. Protect that flap though. No. And now on page 4, you can take 2 more mats, photo mats, and do the exact same thing that we just did, okay?